So as of August of last year, I'm gonna mute everybody. As of August of last year, I reached out to 28 of our well-known artists and asked them who's gonna be a force in the future? What artists do you know from your perspective that we should be paying attention to now? And we got a great list of replies from a lot of our artists who were excited about certain artists. And we reached out to all of them, and 99% of them replied, and we invited 99% of them to be part of the show. And I was saying earlier that some of the artists couldn't participate because their style of work doesn't fit gallery, but a lot of them did. And you're gonna see them today. So I'm gonna take over your screen, and we're going to be able to take a trip with me. And here, a lot of the artists have joined us today. So if your work comes up, please unmute yourself. And I would love for you to give up to a 3 to 4 minute talk about you and your work. Now, I know it's short, but I'm looking forward to everybody experiencing your work, and they can always get in touch later with more details. Well, here we go, guys. I'm gonna take over your screen, and I'm going to start my PowerPoint presentation. Just give me 1 second. Close this down, switch screens. There it is. All right, here we go. Zooming, I'm sharing, canceling. Sorry, bear with me, it's always technical with this stuff. And here we go. All right, you should see a full screen that says Silver, that's correct. All right, we're gonna go back to the beginning because for some reason I'm all the way at the end. And Silver. Welcome to A Glimpse in the Future of Glass. My name is Schey, and this is Habatat Now. And I put my contact information there if you need to reach me or if you have any questions. This will appear a couple times just in case you're interested in anything, you might have any questions you want to follow up with later. So the first slide. Here is my first slide. Welcome. We're traveling to the future right now, and we're excited about this. And this is a show we put together because we're really impressed with the talent of the future, and we're looking forward to getting your opinions on a lot of people's ideas, a lot of people's work for the future, and we're sharing it today. I also, from a personal note, want to advise you to consider acquiring a work from one of these artists from your collection. It's always a great experience to acquire work and support artists early in their career. So our first artist is Terry Bailey. You are here. Would you unmute yourself, please?
I would love to. Hello.
Hi, Terry. I put a picture of you on the screen in case you're not here, but people can see you because you're talking. And I'm just going to go through your slides real quick, and you can talk about your work.
Okay. All right. So like I said, my name is Terry Bailey. I am originally from Wisconsin. I'm currently living just outside of DC. I'm the studio coordinator for the Washington Glass School and the director of WGS Contemporary Galleries. I work in a lot of different materials, but glass is the one that I really have fallen in love with. I have a background in glass blowing, but I found that kiln working is really the technique that works the best for my goal, my aesthetic, and the feel that I want the work to achieve. So the pieces that you see in the show are kiln worked. I'm layering glass stringers, which you might be familiar with if you have seen work such as Tutsinski, for example. I'm using a very similar material, but I'm layering the stringers to create specific patterns that reference textiles. So I'm carefully layering these stringers out in the chosen patterns. Then I'm lightly melting them in the kiln so that they stick together, but they actually still keep their individual shape. So these pieces have a lot of texture. Then I will heat them again in the kiln. I slump them over a hand-carved mold. So each one of these molds are carved out of a plaster mixture, which I can actually just remove from the casting after I'm done with it. So these pieces have a really beautiful hollow space on the inside as well. I grew up around a lot of fabrics. So both of my mother and my grandmother are quilters. And I have spent a lot of time thinking about textiles and how they can really help to shape our idea of what makes a home. So sometimes this is literally, you know, maybe where you grew up or a space, but I think that that word can mean a lot of other things as well. And so in these works, I'm exploring the relationship between this word, home, and the human body, kind of that idea of feeling at home in yourself. And in both instances, fabrics can act as either a mean of expression or sort of a shroud to hide behind. It can be a form of protection, comfort, expression, etc. So the first piece, if we could scooch back to that really quick. Yeah, thanks. The first piece is called Sanctuary Among Fragility, and it's inspired by that notion of a child hiding under a blanket when they're frightened. And so this blanket is very fragile. It doesn't really provide any sort of physical protection, but it acts as a source of safety and comfort for that child. And I know right now, in the craziness of the world that we're living in, there are definitely some days where I just kind of want to, hide under a blanket, just hide away for a little while, get away from the world. And I do that in my own way. The tough days, I know I can just put on my favorite t-shirt for a few minutes to really just take solace in that familiar space. The second piece, which you guys are seeing now, is called Violence Among Growth. And I think that it's definitely struck a chord with some of the relevant imagery that we're seeing with the political environment that we're in. This piece was created sort of in the vein of the last work. I was thinking about being hindered by something that was designed to protect us, possibly allowing ourselves to be suffocated by something that we could easily throw off. That being said, I have kind of avoided laying out any sort of specific concept for this piece, because I believe that this notion of suffocating and struggling is something that we experience as individuals in a variety of ways and situations. So actually, for example, this piece was just featured in an article about COVID, where the writer saw it as addressing the fear in the death cycle of the virus. And so I think that's part of why this work has really resonated with me right now. It really helps to capture, and it helps me share a lot of the intense emotions that I'm seeing around me and experiencing as well. So these are just two sort of pieces in this body of work. I'm working in a very similar manner now as well. But I just wanted to say thanks really quick to Habatat. Excited to be a part of your Habatat family. And I'm excited to meet everyone once the world opens up again. In the meantime, these Zoom meetings are very cool though. So thank you for putting this on.
Thank you so much, Terry. Appreciate it. Next, we have Bree Chesler. You are here, I hear. Please unmute yourself.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, Bree. We can hear you.
So I wasn't originally trained in glass. I was actually trained in metal fabrication. This photo that you're seeing was my first glass experience, really working in a production factory. And I was allowed to teach myself after work how to blow glass. So that's a lot of where I've gotten my skill set and kind of my curiosity with the material. I really like to experiment and try to push it to its limits and see what kind of forms I can create using techniques that may not necessarily be glass specific. This first piece was created from multiple glass processes. So the hands at the top were hot cast right off of the pipe into a mold. And then the bottom piece was actually cage blown. So I built a metal cage and blew into it, and then sculpted on top of it all these other elements. So it's glass and mixed media. The patina you see on it is actually rust, which continues to change over time. So that kind of plays into the title, Wait, Wait. This piece was about finding out that someone I was really close to was ill and dying. And so this was kind of about my experience being a voyeur to that and watching it, but not necessarily feeling it myself and feeling something very different and wanting to hold on to them. So a lot of my work is kind of fed through emotional experiences as well as a visual inspiration. This piece, it's actually a little bit warped. You can see it behind me a little bit better. I'll bring you closer. This is my most recent piece. I started making it because I was a Pilchuck artist in residence this past year. And so a lot of the pieces I fabricated before getting to Pilchuck and then manipulated them through cold working or slumping them in kilns or mirroring them, all different kinds of engraving processes. So it was really an exploration of how to manipulate the glass after the hot shop. And then I built onto it with other materials. A lot of the other materials you can see are glass based. So they're glass beads or glass rhinestones. And then there's hair and fringe. And there's vinyl elements behind it, as you can see. So it's meant to be more of an installation-based piece. A lot of what I'm focused on right now is installation-based. So this slide is my first adventure into large-scale glass making and installation work with glass. And it was at the Bellevue Arts Museum for almost 6 months, I think. But it's about, I think, 10 feet tall and 8 feet wide. And it comes off the wall a little bit over a foot. So all the pieces made in glass are 2D and 3D. There's lots of kiln formed elements. There's lots of torch work elements, as well as glass that was blown in the hot shop. And it was also kind of me letting go of any inhibitions and really trying to let my artistic voice speak. So this piece, I feel like, has really influenced my future work that I'm making now and the aesthetic that I'm working towards. I do have a part of it that I can show you, just so you can see a little bit closer. So it's all pretty detailed. There's all kinds of different elements that you can see inside of. And a lot of my work kind of plays with that internal and external experience. Another exploration that I like to kind of investigate with glass is the fragility, pushing the limitations, again, like I said earlier, of the material, and seeing what kind of structures I can create that display this really fragile kind of aesthetic to them, but don't necessarily cripple, like it doesn't necessarily cripple the piece. It can withstand time and its presence, but it looks like it's falling apart.
Thank you, Bree. I appreciate it. I also want to mention that in the slides, there are the artists that recommended the artist. This particular artist, Bree, was recommended by Laura Donifer, of course. Harry was recommended by Tim Tate. I want to mention that you can see the pound symbol on the screen with the artist in case I neglect to mention it. Thank you, Bree. That was great. I appreciate the insight. All right, let's continue on. Tamara Coatsworth, she is not with us today. I first discovered Tamara through Jim Della's book. If you guys know Jim Della, a collector. And he had some work of hers in his book. And I was perusing through the pages and fell in love with her houses she made out of glass playing cards. And we've had her at our show last year for Pop and Lock with the crayons and the drawings of Warhol that many of you saw and we sold, and some of you clients that are on this actually own those. And so for this body of work, she created this new series. And this is a wall piece, and it's quite inexpensive for all of them, but it's a new body of work, and she's trying it out for this silver show. She was recommended by us. We put in a few other artists that we liked that we thought we'd fit this category of a show. And Tamara has experience in multiple styles of glass construction, blowing, casting, working with lamp working. So she's all around well-trained. This particular work explores a lot of color and shadow, and this is a wall-mounted piece, quite stunning and quite mysterious. And the whole point of the work is trying to get a different change of perspective when you can see it on your wall when you're looking at this work. It is very, very interesting. I've not seen this work in person yet, but I'm hoping to get some video content from her, but it is quite alluring, and I really love the color and the use of tones. Next, Sean, are you online? He was recommended by artist Tim Tate.
Hey guys, I'm Sean Donlin. Nice to see you all here today via Zoom. I am in Richmond, Virginia, and yeah, I've been working with glass for 10 years now, and I'm a framework artist. So I've been using the teapot as a symbol in my work, and I basically will blow glass via flame marking, which is a skill that I use on a torch. And I manipulate these pieces. Get some feedback here. I manipulate the pieces in front of a flame work torch, and I'll use different tubes and rods to basically bend and adhere the parts together. And these pieces are actually quite big for flame working. It's on the scale
I'm
of
gonna mute everybody. Hold on one
a
second. I think someone's
little
making
larger
some
than
noise.
can. In this piece, rhythm, it some of the pieces are as large as my face or head, and the work that I make is basically a tribute to the teapot and the symbol that it creates for us, where it's a universal object that you can sit down with anybody from any different country, any language, and even if you can't speak together, you can actually sit down and enjoy a cup of tea, or like at least take the tranquil moment to wind down and enjoy each other's company, even if there's not a major conversation at hand. So it's kind of like a good symbol to reintegrate yourself into how, reminding yourself of finer things in life. And I've been really pushing the teapots to see like what I can do with them and try to give them a different different looks between melting the teapots and really pushing the movement in there and the whimsical nature, and taking them in a way that you wouldn't normally see an everyday object. And I absolutely love glass for the multitude of ways that you can make it do different things, and in sense of like making it look like metal or making it look like fabric or ceramics. There's so many different possibilities with it, and I absolutely love working with the material. So.
Thank you, Sean. That's great. I have a couple slides up here on.
Sorry, Aaron, I couldn't hear you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry about that.
Great. I have a couple slides up of your particular work. This one's a wall piece, correct?
Yes.
Wall pieces, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And it's really neat when you see these pieces in person. You see them from afar and it's an abstract sculpture, and then as you come closer to it, you start to discover what the shape is and what it is alluring to in the sense of the teapot, and then you know that there's something not quite right with it because of the misshapenness of it. And then also you can tell that you can't tell that it's glass right away, but then as you further investigate the piece, you discover that it's glass.
Yes, we did also. We had Sean invited to our Pop and Lock show that happened last year, and I believe he sold at least 2 of the pieces, maybe more. So
I think he sold all of them.
For being part of this, and we look forward to working with you into the future as well.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me, and I'm really excited to meet everybody once we get into a smoother pace of life. But I hope everybody does enjoy this time of calm to find more about themselves and the people that they care about around them. And I hope that everybody's well and safe during this time. So
thank you, Sean. I appreciate that.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to talk about Maria Bang Espersen from Sweden, recommended by us. Maria came to our gallery last year and had a chance to meet her after looking at her work online. Her work is very unique in which the artwork is not designed before the process. She designs it during the process. And her work is identifying your material is very malleable, no definition. Being that her style goes against the classic idea of glass, but she does it in a non-predetermined way. And these are created by working with the glass hot and pulling and folding and pulling and folding and pulling and folding. And she learns from the material as the material learns from her in a way where she gets to get away with what she wants to do. She wants these works to appear candy-like, but mostly to appear soft, even though they're very, very hard. And she is from Sweden, and she sells really well in her country and in Europe. And we're happy to invite her to participate in this show. And you can see she works in very fun colors, pinks and light grays and other tones along those lines. And if you like abstract work, she's someone you should keep your eye on. She's a force, and I'm really happy that she's a part of this show. Okay, next we have Sean. I know Sean's here, recommended by Habatat. Are you on, Sean?
Yeah. Well, my name's not Sean, but I am on.
Oh, Seth. Sorry, Seth. Thank you for the correction.
no problem. Yeah, well, I'm excited to be a part of this. I believe you have a couple of castings that I sent up to you. These came about. I was working with another artist that specialized in bronze, and I was casting some of her pieces in glass for her, and I got really interested in the differences between the bronze casting world and the glass casting world, in that additions are a very common thing to do in bronze. And you would make a mold and then you would make 30 of the exact same thing. And I wanted to kind of go the opposite direction and make textures and make castings that were too convoluted to make a mold of easily, that were just built directly out of wax and were a one-shot deal. And I would emphasize that by breaking parts of the mold in the process so that it couldn't be recreated the same way twice ever. So these are all just kind of an exploration into the uniqueness of what a casting can be, being a one-of-a-kind piece in a tradition that is usually built around additions. So a lot of my work deals with just the idea of the individual voice, the individual point of view, and this is kind of an extension of that bigger framework that my work exists in.
Very cool. These are at the gallery. Seth actually got them to us, and we're putting them up on display for the Silver Show. They are more impressive in scale than anything. They're very, very impressive works because of the theme behind the work and just the colors and tones. And when they're lit, they really glow, and you can explore these pieces for a while and discover the small hidden face that's in each and every piece. I put a detail so people can see, but they are beautiful works, and I thank you, Seth, for being part of the show.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity. Really, really excited to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. Let's continue on. Oh, I had that piece too. It's another tall. How tall the piece is?
That big one there is, with the stand, it was about 7 feet high. The glass itself was, I think, just over 60 inches in height. That one's sold, so you can't. But
yeah,
but
people get to get an idea of your talent, so that's great. Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
All right, Anna, are you on? I know you're here somewhere.
Hello.
There you are. I can hear you now.
I'm here. So first of all, enormous thank you to Aaron and Corey and everyone at the Habatat family for giving me the opportunity to talk to you today. So my background is in geology. Oh, first of all, my name's Hannah Gibson. I'm both based in the UK, about 40 minutes away from London. So my background's in geology. I'm passionate about glass, and 5 years ago, I began studying for an MA in glass. I began working on a project that I called Recycling Narratives, Whispering Sweet Nothings. So essentially, I keep the shape the same, an easily identifiable shape that hopefully brings people together, so I can focus on the material itself. So I work with recycled glass and upcycled objects. So I try and use challenging types of glasses. So it might be windscreen glass, it might be television glass, it might be glass bottles. But by keeping the shape the same, it means I can focus on the materiality. So each figure is completely unique. So in effect, each is its own limited edition. So it's impossible to recreate the same two. So they range in size between 3.5 and 11 inches. So you can see on the left here, this figure here is in Habatat Silver. It's called Behind Pixels. Oh, so through the Looking Glass. And it's made out of 100% recycled Bang & Olufsen television glass. So you can see the iron inclusion at the front, which is a faint whisper of the previous life. So it weighs about 6 pounds. So again, these ones on the right are again made out of recycled television glass. I also make figures out of things like recycled milk bottles and upcycled watch parts. So like this figure here, Time and Tide Wait for No Man. So it's challenging to try and incorporate metal inclusions with recycled glass such as this. So this is recycled milk bottles. So the elements inside it are things like bronze, copper, silver, brass. So they create beautiful effects, these little vortexes. There's a similar one of these in the Imagine Museum in St. Petersburg, in Florida. So what was I going to say? Anyway, so here you go. You can see they create beautiful vortexes. So it's very unpredictable what it will do. But you can see here the elements of bronze and silver and copper and brass. So one of the things, we've got another one here, again, recycled glass. So as you can see in this one, so something that's important to me is that even though it's recycled glass, that it's cold worked to a very high level. So I take it all the way up through to cerium. So the backs are always very highly polished, which is tricky considering it's recycled glass, but it's a labor of love. Anyway, so like I said, each one can be the same shape. It's something that unites everybody, but each one's completely different, completely unique. So they might be windscreen glass, television glass, glass bottles. But anyway, I'd like to thank you again for the opportunity to talk today. The world has slowed down in recent months, and it's given me the opportunity to pause and reflect and look to the future. And it's, for me, it's been a good opportunity to have a look at what materials I can now use. So anyway, thank you very much, Aaron. I really do appreciate it. Thank you.
You're most welcome, and thank you again for participating. Okay, Scott. Is Scott here today? I had a feeling he might be coming, but if he doesn't, I can talk for him. Scott was recommended by Brent Key Young, an artist from Ohio, and he is also from the Ohio area. Scott is heavily inspired by architecture through generations. These works are wall hung, and they have to do with the life of buildings. A building is built, then it's remodeled, then it ages, and then it becomes deconstructed. He explores that narrative in his work layer by layer. And it's something that he's felt very strongly about for ages. And then we thought was a very interesting idea behind his work. And so he's someone to keep your eye on for the future. The pictures that we have here are 2 wall panels. I'm sure he has others that aren't exactly square. He has other shapes, but they are very interesting and alluring works. Eric Hess. Eric was recommended by Michael Janis. He is a new artist for me to be aware of, but he has been working with glass for a bit. His work touches everyday life. He wants people to reflect on their emotions and their intellectual responses to different feelings you have, whether it's love, abuse, death, greed, loss of control. And his work appears simple, but it has complex ideas. And he's someone we've never worked with before, and we're interested in seeing where his path leads. And we wanted to include him in the Silver exhibition today. Next is UK artist Julie Johnson, recommended by David Reiki. Julie is a very, very whimsical artist making animals. And she is in the UK with a partner, Eric Lemire, and she creates these beautiful objects of blown glass, and she mixes other materials in them. The feet on this particular piece is metal for the birds. And then she's also known for doing dog work as well, I'll bring up in a second. And it's always interesting to see where one body of work leads to the next. And this one, I believe, is called Red Cherry and has a different tone than the previous 2 works. And then she also sent us this very fun piece called Get a Dog a Bone. Unsure of pricing on it, but it is just a great example of someone who has an amazing talent for the future. Okay, Zuzana Karodi, I believe it's pronounced, was recommended by Peter Hora from the Czech Republic. We have visited her studio when we went to our trips for the glass tours that we do here in Michigan. I have this short video. I'm going to see if it will play. Give me 1 second to share my audio and see if it works, just to give you an idea. The visual. is, let me turn off my audio from that gives you an idea of what her work looks like. It reflects off itself, and they're quite stunning. And I have, these are layers, parallel and perpendicular images, which move both space and time to a rhythm. Work is a visual image of movement and geometry of light, and she explores different forms of technology while creating her work. So I figured it was worth showing and sharing because they're well mounted and they really catch your eye. Next is Zuzana Kubakova from Germany, recommended by Tomas Savichka. She is a very interesting artist working in mixed media, telling her stories through work. She likes to create new bodies of work every year, which is kind of unorthodox for artists that we represent, but it goes to show her creativity needing to create and be innovative every time she creates something. I'll read you a quote though about her work that I found very interesting, which is, "I work with glass as if I were conducting an interview, but without the niceties and courteous phrases." So I thought that was very fun in a way that she's able to create and share her work with the world, even though it's a very personal topic for the artist. All right, now we're on Mark. Mark, are you here?
I am.
All right, well, thanks for
seeing.
You were recommended by Peter Bremers, and I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Peter. Happy to be here. I really do wish that we were all at Habatat right now, just hanging out together and enjoying all this awesome work all in one space. But with the state of things, this will have to do, right? So a lot of my work is, I guess the way I work has always been in stages where the previous work builds onto the future work. And a lot of times I spend so much time on a singular piece that new ideas pop into my head, and, you know, for different forms. So a lot of times I'll have a plan, but it might change, or that plan might be used in the future. So a few years ago, I had an exhibition in the Netherlands, and I decided to focus all of that work on one series that I barely scratched the surface on, which was all based on glaciers and ice. I'm a climber, so I go to the mountains as often as I can, scaling peaks and rock climbing. And so that series was really close to me. And during that process of finding reference material through my own trips and trips from friends, I was trying to find ways of mimicking ice crystals. And I made a few pieces for that show that ended up becoming their own series, which is the series you see now, the Tensile series. And from there, it's kind of transformed into its own thing, where it had that initial idea, but now it's kind of run, and it's in all these different tangents. And now it's really based on, for me, the process. I just love working with glass. I have a studio at home now, and whenever I don't have anything to do, I find myself in there working, which is kind of a blessing and a curse, because it keeps you from having a regular life, but you're still doing what you love. So it's a happy life. Started out in glass as a cold worker, so that still reflects in my work very heavily. The way these pieces are created is a series of glass blowing and then cold working. I actually have a cup here. I don't know if you can see it. So I blow this, and then I carve this pattern into it with different diamond wheels, and this will become just the very outside skin of the sculptures. From there, they get blown into bigger pieces, and then they get cut again. So I spend a lot of time with them. A lot of the titles come from not necessarily the artwork, but a lot of the things that I'm doing or thinking about during that long process of working on them. A lot of them are named after pieces of music, or hanging out with friends, or looking forward to different trips. And yeah, just love working with glass, and I hope it shows through my work.
Thank you, Mark. Beautiful objects. I appreciate it. Looks like you put your heart and soul into every piece.
It's fun.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to move on now to David Licata, who was recommended by Laura Donifer. David is a very interesting artist that creates wearable glass. And some of you a few years ago remember our art show we had. We had wearable work. I forgot what it was called off the top of my head, but it was called Glazotic. And he would have been a great candidate for that show. He's participated in the Laura Donifer's fashion shows. He's mostly interested in how people connect and interact. And this body of work kind of gives you an idea of, you know, what he's capable of. He does wall installations as well, but for this particular exhibition, we took his wearable stuff because I thought it was very fun and interesting. He uses traditional metalsmith techniques and modifies them for glass. And they discuss a topic of, topics of strength, vanity, and protection. So if you're looking to wear some glass, this artist is very talented. And like I said, he also does wall installation work, so someone to keep your eye on. This is my information again. If you need to get a hold of me, I just pop this in the middle, and we're going to move on to Priscilla. Are you here, Priscilla?
Yeah, hi everyone.
Thanks
I don't know
for
if you,
joining us.
thank you so much for being, for letting me be a part of this. So I'm very happy that Laura Donifer is kind of like my glass mom and love her to death. So I grew up in Hong Kong. I moved to Canada when I was very young. And growing up as an immigrant in North America sort of always gave me this kind of polarizing identity, because it was always between my Western upbringing and then my cultural heritage. So I didn't always start in glass. I'm a respiratory therapist, anesthesiology assistant back home. I specialize in cardiac care. So I've been doing that for quite a bit of years, and then I got into glass and then got bitten by the glass bug and never looked back, I guess. So right now I'm actually at grad school at Illinois State University with John Miller. And it's been such a great year to study under him in Slate Grove. And so I have 2 more years of that. But I see my work as like a very nostalgic and whimsical, but a mischievous way to initiate like a conversation about the complexity and the way in which patriarchal society kind of shapes Asian female identity. And so I use a lot of artifacts of patriarchy, as I like to call them, from my childhood that sort of have become pop culture symbols, or so removed from their original agenda that often they are just symbols that people recognize without kind of knowing the background of them. And so this is actually the second piece of my Kitty Army series. So I do a lot of 3D work, 3D rendering and CNC carving and 3D printing with my processes. I'm secretly a mold maker and a caster, but I blow glass on the side. And so this piece is my satirical take on the human evolutionary cycle. And I've always thought that like it was it's interesting to use Hello Kitty because she doesn't really have a mouth, and she's sort of a universally recognizable symbol for Asian females for some reason. And and I always feel that there's a quote that Trim Min Ha says that a stereotype is not a false representation, rather an arrested representation of a changing reality. And I think that's what draws me to Hello Kitty, is because I grew up with her, and she was a very identifiable symbol in my life and my childhood. And so I want to show what else we can see beyond what the stereotypical Asian female characteristics are. And so the slide before this, so this was part of a Kitty Army series. I actually made probably over 100 of these Hello Kitties that lined up in a big scale, inspired by the terracotta armies. And it was really an examination of where the stereotypes for an Asian female comes from, and like what the historical context and the background that led to those stereotypes. And so this series is actually based on the Lessons for Women, which is written in the Han Dynasty. And it's about written by a female scholar about how females and girls should conduct themselves. So each of these ones have a chop on the bottom of them that has their Chinese name. So each of the four in the middle represents each of the four virtues that are recommended by Confucius's teachings for females to have. And I've always thought that it was like a fun way to examine these things, but also kind of look at how they've affected the female role later on in history. So I also do a lot of casting, as I said before, and this is part of my Gilded Memories series. So that series started in undergrad, which was 4 years ago. And so I cast a lot of objects that are from my past that we kind of don't look at the same way because they're toys for children, but I feel a lot of our identity and our gender association is based from like the things that we played with as a child. And so this piece is about the impossible standard of white beauty that a lot of immigrants and minorities sort of have to face, only to sort of be set up to fail because we'll never achieve that standard of white beauty. And so it's a music box that's gilded, and it completely functions. The little ballerina turns and spins, and on the I didn't get a chance to send the photo to Erin, but on the mirror itself, when you pick it up and look at it, it actually says like ashamed, or like shamed with an A in the bracket. So it really talks about how much we as minorities internalize these standards of beauty and realize that we can never achieve them. Yeah.
Very topical. I appreciate it, Priscilla. Thank you for sharing with us today. Beautiful works, and I'm glad Laura recommended it to us, and we look forward to seeing what you're doing in the future.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much.
Most welcome. Next is Tom Marino. Is Tom online? Might not be. I could talk for Tom. Tom was a Habatat ad. Tom works in ceramics with porcelain, silver, and glaze. He's kind of a little outsider for this particular show, being the fact that these incorporate glass in the form of glaze, but they are just beautiful, and he fit well, I thought, into someone to keep your eye on for the future. We've had his work at the gallery before, not really part of the International, but on display. He creates realistic treasures that would be normally thought to be kept in a throne room or a royal bedroom. Silver is used, or gold, in the interiors to create a very royal appearance. And he uses very shiny glazes as well. They're very just beautiful pieces, very precious. And if you've ever seen one, you would know what I'm talking about. And he is in Ohio and local, and we have his work in the gallery should you want to see it. Next is James Mascari, I think I pronounced that right, from the UK, an artist that could not get his work to us due to world circumstances, but we're able to show him during this particular Zoom and in these digital times. It's great. James uses glassblowing techniques to share stories and legends in his work. So you may have heard about a leprechaun, you may have heard about a ship burning down somewhere, some story in history that may be true or false, and he shares the narrative in his actual pieces. It's kind of a very fun way of putting two ideas together to be able to talk about artwork. He leaves you also lots of room to interpret, because he doesn't define exactly what it is. You get a hint with the title of the piece, but that's about it. And you can go on Wikipedia and Google the story about Elephant Island and learn more about what he's trying to share, but it's just something fun and interesting, and we really like his work. And this was a different body he sent me recently that this particular piece has a truffle inside of it, and I have more to learn about this particular work, but it just shows off his talent. Those look like boars on top. Someone else to keep your eye on. This is Natalie. I'm gonna try her last name. I'm sure I'm gonna do it wrong. Was Nadiu from Canada, recommended by Sybil Peretti. And this is an installation of her work called Discard Woman's Handkerchief Collection. And all three of these pieces are for sale, less the table. And her work relates to, her installations relate to domestic themes and industrialization. And these particular handkerchiefs are all glass, and they relate to feminine moments in time, whether they were seen and experienced or not. And on every piece, you can see the title of the piece, I guess for lack of a better term, embroidered on the actual handkerchief. And they are very beautiful, dainty pieces. And we're honored to have her. Next is Kit Paulson from USA. Many of you are familiar with her work. She's a very spiritual person, and she makes a lot of very interesting things out of glass. She made these glasses called Glasses for Concealing Oneself in the Undergrowth. She loves to explore the material, creating both things that are decorative and bizarre. Many of the items she creates are not part of the natural world, and she really enjoys that. And if you ever want to see some more of her work, not really much is available, but you'll be able to see her talent on her website. She has a great video of herself wearing some of her jewelry and masks and singing a song, which is kind of fun, which is great. Morgan Peterson, we had her at Pop and Lock last year. She explores addiction in today's society. Everyone is addicted to something, whether it's you have drugs or alcohol or maybe religion, something is your addiction. And she just explores every kind of addiction that there is possible. For us, she sent us these particular pieces of these drugs to get an idea of coming across addiction in a very clean and forward way. She put forth a statement that I find interesting. I'll read to you. This is verbatim. Powerful people perpetuate addiction in order to minimize discontent and unrest. So she has put a lot of thought into her perception of reality and into her work. She wants to evoke a response from the viewer in your own reflections of maybe your own addictions or amusement. They're very beautiful works. This particular one is sold. Next is Ronnie Plessel. He was recommended by Peter Hora from the Czech Republic. Ronnie is a well-known and famous product designer in Europe. He creates beautiful cast objects. If you haven't seen his stuff, you probably should check him out. He focuses a lot on clear and uranium glass, and they are quite substantial works. And this particular one is 19 by 14.5, and these other bodies of work on his website, they're just immaculate, next level products. People have often compared him to being the next Levinsky, so he's someone you should be keeping your eye on. Next is Timothy Rawlinson. Are you here, Tim? Nope, didn't join us. Okay. Oh, you are. Tim, all right, glad you could be here.
Hi, how you doing? Really lovely work by everyone. Really nice to see. Yeah, my name is Tim Rawlinson. I'm based in London, England. I'm a resident artist at London Glass Blown, which is run by Peter Layton, which some of you might be familiar with. So this is my piece, Echoes of Light. It's blown very thick, quite heavy, large pieces, and then they're cut and polished. So you sort of, it's about manipulating the optical qualities of the glass and the way that they absorb and then refract light out. But also, sort of I like the illusion aspect. So the purple in this piece is all an illusion. It's just the way the light goes through the blue and the pink, so it creates that nice rich color. So I often think of it as sort of painting with light and just, so yeah, and this piece there's no green in it, it's just yellow and blue. You can create some really beautiful colors by just the overlaying of the glass color. There's a lot of cold work involved, they're very highly polished surfaces, so you sort of manipulate the optical effects of the glass, and they're about sort of viewer interaction and investigation. So like I said, there's no, the colors are illusions, and there's different sort of optical effects within the glass. So sort of the more time you spend with it, the more you'll start to see and understand, and hopefully objects of contemplation for people. Yeah.
Very interesting, Tim. I consider this work, they're kind of like 3D paintings where you look at them and you're able to watch the piece, watch the area around them, and really be able to experience the piece as you move around it. So they're very beautiful. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for having me in the show. Some stunning work by people, and hopefully I'll get to meet you all soon.
Yeah, be great. Thank you, Tim.
Cheers.
Tom, are you around?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great, great.
All right.
Please join us and take it away. Recommended by us here at Habatat.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for having me here. I'm so excited to see everybody. There's lots of like old friends, and it's just people that have already kind of inspired me and inspired my work. But I live and work in Corning, New York. I do the glass blowing demonstrations at the Corning Museum of Glass. I've been working at the museum for a long time and kind of traveling as one of their mobile glass blowing demonstrators. But this new body of work that we have is, I call it the Energy Series. This piece that I'm looking at here is called River. So I'm mostly interested in the idea of the invisible. I like to make personal visualizations of different invisible forces or phenomena. I like to think a little bit about what does electricity look like? What does sound look like? What does the energy in between two people look like? Or the energy between yourself, the earth, and the universe, if you want to think of it a little bit more macroscopically. You know, you start to think about people and the way that we all interact. You know, things are always changing, but things are changing a lot more now. But I kind of started to think a little bit more about how people have different energy points, or people have different, people have different meridians. I have a piece titled Meridians, or Meridian. And, you know, a person has a meridian, the earth has a meridian, and in astronomy, there's meridians. And I think that these are different energies that are all not so different. And I feel like we're all connected in some way through that type of energy. I've worked with all different ways of working with glass. I've worked with all different ways of working with lots of different materials. I do feel that glass is intrinsically beautiful. I feel like a chunk of glass on the floor, you know, somebody will go over and pick it up and try to find what it is or what kind of medium. I think we have an advantage over all kinds of other different mediums by working with glass. So I kind of am always drawn back to glass. And these pieces here have very, very simple technique. It's a rod of borosilicate glass, very simply bent with a little torch. It's something that you can kind of learn in a matter of minutes. But yeah, so the raw material itself, the glass, where you can kind of walk around it, a lot of these pieces are really quite large. You can walk around these pieces. You can see other people through those pieces, and you can kind of make that connection with somebody else that's seeing the work. So yeah, I just kind of believe that everything has its own energy, and it's just going to be really interesting to see what kind of energy comes through a new show like this, where sometimes people might be able to see these pieces in person or see them online. And it's really interesting to see everybody else's work and what kind of creative energy they've put into their pieces, and how we can kind of connect and influence the viewers and the people around this show. But it's great to be a part of. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for everything.
You're welcome, Tom. It's great to have you. Such beautiful, substantial works, and we're honored to have you at the Silver exhibition.
Thank you.
All right, Megan, I think it's Steljez, but I could be wrong. Anybody could correct me if they know how to pronounce it. I don't think she's here, but I'll talk about her work. Her work is about sexuality and creating a dialogue about sexuality, sexual health, and consent. And she uses color and light on her works focused on pulp culture and a familiarity with food. She considers food a safe place to start having a dialogue about the topics that I spoke about before. So She's a very exciting artist. We're very honored to have her part of the show, and we're going to keep our eye on her in the future. And now we're on to Austin Stern. Are you on, Austin?
Yeah, I'm on.
Great to hear. You're recommended by Pullman and Knowles, and welcome to Habatat Silver.
Thank you so much. I'm really, really excited to be part of this show and see all of this great work that everybody else is throwing in. And yeah, thank you very much. A little bit about me. I started blowing glass when I was 14. I'm 31 now, so glass has really been my kind of the most consistent thing through my life. And I love to blow glass. I love the process of working with hot glass. It's just so much fun. And it's come to be kind of the language that I articulate my thoughts and ideas through. And so this series that is in the show, I have 3 pieces from the Little Monsters series. And I make these characters to talk about mental health and anxiety, and to talk about the way that we support each other, the way that we have a dialogue about our feelings. So these characters that you see, this piece and the other ones that we also have images of, these figures that are on top of the larger character are physical manifestations of thoughts and feelings, basically. So the pieces individually each have a specific kind of message or idea, but generally that's kind of a unifying theme throughout all the works. And I like to use humor. I think it's important to use humor to make what's ordinarily kind of a sensitive subject much more approachable, and to sort of help drop your guard so you can be open. And that way we can be better about expressing our feelings in a way that is healthy and constructive, and also look after each other more, I think.
That's great, Austin. It really helped reading about your work to get an idea of your perspective. And it makes you smile looking at your pieces, no matter what your mood. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing. And thank you again for being part of Silver.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Next is Ethan Stern, recommended by Habatat. Many of you are familiar with Ethan's work. Ethan has a strong foundation in ceramics that leads to a unique perspective in the material. He's all about the textures, the color, the light, the abstraction, the ongoing exploration of his glass objects. We've shown him in the past at SOFA, and this particular body of work, we're showing his clear glass, because we haven't really focused on it before, and I thought it would be a fun way to focus on for the Silver show, to show his clear translucent works. And these are 2 of his pieces. And Ethan is exploring the idea right now in this body of work of heirlooms, family heirlooms, treasures that pass through generations. And he hopes, I'm guessing, that his work passes from a generation to generation. And it's a great opportunity to really explore his textures without the actual color. His color works are also beautiful. We've done well with those in the past, but we were honored to have him in the Silver show. Ani Enmark and Louise Thompson were recommended by David Reiki. They have been working together for over 5 years. They have a scientific approach to their artwork, invoking intrigue. And these are done hot. And this particular one is called Temptation 1 and 2. And they explore the idea of tastes and memory in this particular piece. You see ice cream, you see different times of your life which you've enjoyed ice cream or a treat, and they want you to remember that particular moment in time when you see their work. They've also done work exploring the interior. This particular piece, titled Orogenesis Composition, explores the interior world. You get an idea of these objects created their own universes or their own worlds inside, and that's what they want you to get a feeling from by creating these beautiful glass objects. And next up from Germany is Maria Vokel. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. Are you online, Maria?
Yeah, hi.
All right, you're here. We can't see you, but that's okay if you don't want to see you.
Moment. Okay.
Give it one more try. But we can definitely hear you, so feel free to.
Okay, I'm sorry. So much, thank you so much for having me. One moment. Oh, sorry. So, yeah, it's pronounced focal. It's possible a little bit different.
I'll take a lesson, I promise.
It's okay. I work and live in Germany, Wildberg nearby Cologne, and I became more and more interested in glass while working for other glass artists and studied different techniques and was part of exhibitions in Germany and the Netherlands with objects out of flat glass, blown glass, and lamp glass. So I'm pretty interested in evolving as an artist. And last year I had an idea for using kiln glass while snorkeling in Thailand. Because when I get asked, what is it like to be a creative person? Where do you get your ideas from? I realize it's much like diving in the sea. And the moment emerging from the water is comparable to the feeling I have when I'm absorbed in my work and interrupted. So I use this, and as a sculptor, I capture this moment in my sculptures, and these mysterious water creatures that I create are as mystical, I think, as the material glass itself. They appear in stories more like romanticized as mermaids or deadly as sirens. And I feel like they do not correspond to the image of women today anymore. So I see them as profound guardians of the waters with opulent and individual crowns on their heads, which are an expression of the dignity and strength and grace of the wearer. The diversely shaped shells create a composition that reflects the glory and the richness of the beautiful underwater world. And yeah, so I get my visions while diving, and I hope you can see and feel it.
That's great, Maria. And have you gone diving with Michael yet? Michael Behrens?
I did not.
Yet? I know you both dive, so I figured there might be the case of you guys going.
Yeah, we have this
for inspiration.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Maria. I appreciate you sharing with us today. And that wraps up our silver presentation. I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. And so if anybody has any comments or questions, this would be the time. I'm grateful for everybody who logged on today and got a chance to see this amazing, innovative exhibition with such talented artists today. And we thank you all for taking an hour today to join us. And I think it was very, very fun. And I learned a whole lot. I had my notes in case nobody showed up, but I had my notes to cover everybody. And I'm really, really happy that this came through. And again, if you have any questions, this will be the time.
Go, Aaron.
Thank
Really
you.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
Amazing
Thank
art.
you, Aaron, very much from California.
Thank you, guys. And thank all the artists for coming and joining us. Ah, Maria, I see you now. There you are.
Yeah.
Going up.
Wonderful.
I hope to keep these events going every Saturday. I'm probably moving next week, so not to overlap the other exhibitions that are online, other Zooms. But I'm glad you guys can sign up and be part of this every week. And as long as I have the strength in my body, I plan on continuing these fun events. Next week, we're going to be visiting the studio of Tim Tate and Michael Janus exhibition at Artsy.
Yes.
Artsy. So look forward to that next week.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to all the artists.
Here we go.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, guys, and a big thank you to all the artists as well.
Thanks, everybody. That was fabulous. Thank you.
Have a great
Thanks so much,
weekend and
Aaron.
see you next time.
Thank you.
This town.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.